Welcome back to the Shire. It's Tony here, Hobbit Racing. So excited to share with you the MRSlotcar DN4 Shadow. No, it didn't always look like this. Courtesy of Ron Rutger, I was able to do this white kit, and sure, oh my goodness, could you have bought it? Of course, but where would have been the fun in that and the adventure for me? So join me and let's see how we came from a white kit all the way to this beautiful liveried, great performing slot car. So here we are with all of our parts laid out in front of us as this white kit is presented to us here, and this is our starting point, right? So let's start out with some small parts. Well, since there is some strange primer shortage at my local hobby town, I'm going to start with some of the small parts that, again, you can do it your way. I'm going to do it mine. I never see a need to prime the small parts. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to combine the effort of what I've seen from MRSlotcar, from what I've seen from Ernie's liveried car, combined with what I've seen online with the different iterations of the 1974 Shadow. So that area, from my evaluation of pictures, could be, should be, would be, depending on what you're doing. Silver. Shouldn't have to worry too much about where it goes, but again, there's no reason to waste it. There's no reason to waste it or make a mess, you know? So it's really your preference. You know, you probably wouldn't even need to under normal circumstances. You probably don't even need to, other than getting a second coat, maybe getting rid of any brush strokes. And you could probably even spray this. If you look at that, Gia agrees that you could spray it. Yeah. There you go. A little bit of silver on there for now to start with. Oh, and I also believe that the tailpipes are more of a muted brown color. And I also believe that depending on which version you see, the roll cage is also not chrome. It's not chromed out, or if it was, it's certainly been muted. So I'm going to try the roll cage in actually gray, not silver, and then see what that looks like against the backdrop. Let's start on this side. Get it on there. Worry about smoothing it out later, right? Get it on there. If it got on there too thick, well, hey, while you got the brush, take it off and move it around. Now, of course, you know, we have our few pieces, and as I start to take them off, obviously I'll go ahead and then I'll be touching them up in any areas, maybe even doing a little light sanding where they came off of the plastic from the molding, or if they just happen to fall off, well then there you go. There's one right there already on a clip. And so as I work on this detail, I'm going to do the flat black. I'm not going to really overly worry about whether or not I hit the mirror itself. If I do, I get it. And if I don't, great. But you know, the goal here is to get paint absolutely on what would be the soon to be aluminum stanchion. And you're also going to have to get in between. It's got a little bit of a two-part piece that goes vertical here. So I'm going to have to come as close to the mirror as possible on all sides, of course. And another thing you can also do here is, if you really are getting into that detail, this aluminum, what would have been an aluminum structure, probably it has all these holes, so you can also come back and go inside those holes, just like that. There's one half of it right there. Maybe I'll come back and just for the heck of it, we'll do the silver. See if I can't do that part all in one shot right now. So let's see just how precise I can be. All right, let's get inside there to start with. Yeah, you just got to take your time. You know, we're of course always seeking perfection, but are we really ever going to get perfection? Well, maybe. But you know, you just got to take your time on that sort of stuff, and there you go. Flat black on the otherwise aluminum stanchion in the 1:1 scale, silver mirror. You know, it just takes practice, it takes time, and it takes patience. And honestly, the time and the patience part is why we love doing what we do in this hobby, whether it be the time to paint, whether it be the time to tune, whether it be the time to talk about slot cars, right? We all love to talk about slot cars too. Hey, we're making some hay. We got our roll cage in gray, where I might put some chrome highlights on it, but I've seen enough evidence to show that there were indications that that was not always a chromed piece, or if it was very worn out. And then we've got a bunch of our intakes on the top of that motor down here, slowly taking them off of the plastic. And then we've got our mirrors that are pretty much just straight up done. If I can hold those in my hand, maybe in front of the light. Well, we've got those completely done now. So yeah, we're making really good progress with some of the intricate parts. For sure, silvered up there, where those are going to rest on top, or otherwise would be the top of the motor. So yeah, car isn't going anywhere yet. No tuning there. Sorry for the darkness. But, you know, we're slowly making our way through some of the parts. All right, so let's play here for a moment. Let's see if we can't make Jackie Oliver's fire suit. Probably should not have this really nice Tampa Bay Lightning sweatshirt on, but, you know, I'll be careful. This is just cardstock. Just some cardstock here, okay? Just got to have a surface to mix, right? And it won't take much paint if we get it right. And if we get it right, it really won't take very much paint. So that's probably good. That's probably good. Shoot, if I get it right, I might even be able to salvage not wasting another popsicle stick. All right. Now, obviously, his fire suit is like, I don't know, golden vanilla ice cream, but it's certainly not that color. Well, I promise you, folks, I live in the woods on a ranch, on a small ranch, on a small farm. I have no idea what that was. I just want to make sure it's not coming through my cardstock. Bloop. How about 2 bloops? How about 3 bloops? Bloop. Okay. By the way, my bloops aside, get to that color however you feel like it's necessary to get to that color. I'm just showing you how I'm getting there. Right? We all get to pretend we're in 3rd grade again and mix paint. Bloop. Bloop. How about 3 bloops? Come on, one more. Come on, one more. Come on. All right. Let's try that. There you go. There it is. There's our color right there. There's our fire suit color. Let's pick up Jackie's legs. Yeah, that's going to be it. You can't see that I'm holding it against it. Or I'm against the computer screen, but I like what I have made. I like what I have made. I'll give him some red boots afterwards. He's wearing red gloves, so we'll give him some red boots. The best place to clip appears that it would be where his head would be. So, yeah, this is actually coming out exceptionally well. I'm super happy with it. I like this color. We don't have to purposefully paint his hands. If you get a little bit on his hands, hey, so be it. You don't have to worry about where his seat belt's going to be. You're going to come back on that with black or red and black. You're going to come back on that with black or whatever color you think that his seat belt should be. Yeah, that's your choice as far as what you think his color should be. Maybe you got some outrageous color you think the fire suit should be. All right. Well, there you go. There's There's some interesting work there to try and match the color that his fire suit was back in 1974. All right, so a quick recommendation. If you really are insistent on getting into the details that somebody wants to try and look at, I think of Lee Wright, for example, and I'm nowhere near in terms of that modeling level of detail from Lee, for sure. But this has a cluster. This is a gauge cluster, right? You are not going to paint that with a paintbrush. So guess what? They make toothpicks. Get some white paint on a toothpick, and if you want to dot those things, well, let's not forget to take advantage of the tools that we have also, and come in here and dot them appropriately, and then step back and figure out, did you get it? It's doable, and maybe I don't even need to be under the microscope to look at it to figure out where those dots are. Sometimes, as our eyes get older, actually easier to be further away sometimes than it is to be closer. But you'll see in just a moment, you know, I'm just touching the edge of these instrument cluster pieces, try and highlight the raised sections, and you'll notice it in no time. So I get this little upside down Mickey Mouse shaped piece. There we go. But you know, that took nothing. That took just a toothpick. Hopefully it's a toothpick where I didn't put the paint side in my mouth. I'll find out if I have a white tongue. Nope, I did not put the white side in my tongue. So it's little details like that. If that matters to you, right? Well, guess what? It matters to me. You know, so do it. And I'll do another one for you. I'm pretty sure the inside of the steering wheel is not black. I feel like the inside of the steering wheel edge is white also. So just come in here and make it white. Just like that. And there you have it. Now the steering wheel is as it could be, as it should be. Again, that's debatable. But the point that I'm making is, if you want to model it up in that way, then model it up in that way. So let's take a quick peek at how those red gloves came out as I did that off camera. All right, as we return to the scene, As we return to the scene, what we've got going on now is, you know, like I said, all the little bits are painted and ready to be assembled. I suppose we could assemble the intakes if we wanted to, but there's no real urgency to do that right now. So we're going to set that aside. You know, stay organized. There's no reason you can't put it back. There's no reason you can't put it back in here. Learned many a lesson, even though I have parts to spare. Those two grub screws that you might see right there, for example, those are my grub screws. I couldn't tell you what I did with the grub screws that came with this. Now, to be honest, I think we were missing the tailpipes, and Ernie Mozzetti, MRSlotcar, they are going to send me some tailpipes for this car. Sometimes when white kits get packed, maybe things are missing. I don't know. But fortunately, I am fortunate enough that I have a lot of spare parts, and not everybody does. So organize yourself when you start taking stock, especially if you have a white kit. So there, now our bits are in there, and we won't lose them when we get ready to assemble the car. I think I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to lose Jackie. All right, Jackie came out so nice. I mixed that cream and I mixed that burgundy. So really nice. And test fit him in here. In fact, I think even test fitting him, I think he's just gonna live in here until we paint this car. I am dealing with some awkwardness when it comes to primer and the availability of it. So I'll get my butt to some primer soon, but looks pretty good sitting in that white car. So can rest right there. And in fact, I'll go one step further. I think we'll go ahead and we will refit the limited windshield. All right, so Jackie will hang tight right there in his beautiful burgundy helmet. So that's tune a slot car, right? I mean, there's no mystery about what's going on here. Slotted parts, in my opinion, mostly. yes, certainly, you probably got a slotted pinion, you got a slotted motor there, the MX-16, 23,000 RPMs. It is the single shaft, which is just nice to keep your way out of the way on the backside from a tire perspective, even though most Sidewinder cars, short of you really going bulging on the sidewall in terms of 20, I don't know, 21 millimeter in diameter tire, you're not going to hit the other side of the shaft. It's just widely known. You shouldn't run into those issues. But we're going to put the grub screws in here, and we're going to get the height here set up the right way. I don't believe there's really any way to lower this, but we have that wonderful 9 millimeter deep wood guide already, in my opinion. So we'll get going on that, and I think from the get-go, we'll get our setup right here the right way. I'm going to throw the other quick slick on here, and we'll get our front height setting the right way, and then we'll disassemble and get this motor out of here, because I'm going to break in this motor while it's not under load as the first pass. So got our quick slicks on here. Probably take a page out of our fellow slot car enthusiasts, and maybe this time for the detail of this car, we'll throw some white dots on the tires and try and maintain. I think I already wrecked by just evaluating the car. These things come off so easily, and if you're going to evaluate the tires, it's so easy to get these off by accident. Already probably rubbed or wrecked the rear Goodyear that was on the original rubber, but again, we're not using the original rubber, so neither here nor there as far as how that goes. So let's get our 0.9, and don't have to be mysterious about this. My only thing about these 0.9s are, am I going to clear? These are 4 millimeter ones, so am I going to clear the inside of here? But it looks like we're already in a very nice place. Looks like we're already in a very nice place to the point where the grub screws actually clear. They actually clear the inside of the wheel wells. So that's a bonus feature on the design of the body, I suppose you could say. So if they rise above, then you're okay. So again, these are usually eyeball things. Some people say put it down flat. Some people hold it. I just like to hold it because I feel like I have a better attempt at vertical and then horizontal with it in my hand. And then you just heard that sound. Maybe you heard that sound. That's the plastic finally taking it in, right? That's the plastic finally taking it in. Now, you might say, well, geez, Tony, couldn't you just have checked to see whether the tires were going to rest all the way to the top? And I mean, they could, but I don't want tires rubbing against that plastic axle block. I'd rather have an oval point set screw in there that is going to provide the least amount of friction, right? Said it once, I'll say it again. Friction is the enemy. Actually come in and take a look and try and get that, even if it is our starting point, just below the plastic. Just below the plastic, so that can be our first starting point. And maybe that is the place. Maybe that is the place where we land too. You never know. It's very possible that when I put this back on there, that we land that high up. We want the tires just barely rolling and touching on the track. I'm going to run this in a Can-Am race here. All cars must have their front tires touching the track and rolling in a competitive style, in the spirit of racing. Pretty straight to me. I'm going to go for it with that one too. Take your time. Many times, many others and myself have explained, there's no sense in rushing a new threaded screw, or a new screw you are threading, through the plastic. The last thing you want to do is strip out anything on this chassis. If you strip out anything on the chassis, well, there are some savvy techniques out there if you want to try and fill a hole in with super glue and then thread back through super glue. But a lot of times, if you mess up things on your chassis, you are in line to be buying a new chassis. Look through that tiny little spot. Nothing there yet. almost. We want to get it at the same place that we just did the other one. All right, there we go. So now we're in there, and we'll figure that out if they were. So let's see how the width of this actually looks by putting this all the way in here and then aligning it with, obviously you can't go that far. You've got the axle coming through, so if we were to assume that if we were to assume that we're going to put our inserts back in there and they can't go any deeper than the internal well of the wheel itself, not the wheel well of a body, then we can't go past a certain point. So I'm going to have to eyeball that point right now and see whether that's going to be wide enough. Oops, I think I hit the camera. Or if it's going to have to come even more. Just right there on the edge of it already. And that's perfect. So now let's go under here and just see what kind of fitment we have and how much wider we can go. So that's not too bad, and that's an awful lot of space. So we're looking at least, some 0.1s, 0.2s on either side right there. So let's go ahead and get our spacers out and figure that out. So I'm going to do a unique combination of thruster bushings here. I'm going to try and pair some SlotCar corner 0.005 thick axle spacers, if I have enough for both sides. I think I do. With sideways 0.04. Very small ones, but I want to sandwich them because what we don't want to have happen is we don't want to put ourselves in a position where our axle spacer slides underneath that axle block. So we want a good flush spacing here. And in theory, you don't have to worry too much about it here, but you might as well not worry about the tolerances there at all whatsoever that could fall inside of there and sandwich it. So let's see what we can get out of doing that. Oh, and by the way, while we've got our opportunity, there is absolutely no reason that we shouldn't stop for a moment and polish the axle. So let's go ahead and do that. There is no reason to not have that axle nice and polished for those rub screws. No reason to not have that polished with some 3000 grit. 0.05s on there. Go ahead and get out the 0.04, aka 1 millimeter. These guys, I would like them to sit down so that I don't lose them. A wonderfully perfect fit. And then we sandwich. All right. So there we go. All right. So let's get ourselves back in place here, right? And then let's work on that same thing on the other side. Now, I'll be honest. This could be too much. This could be absolutely too much as I go to look the very first time here. As I slide this on, there's very little left on this side, which could be a good thing. Could be exactly the look we're looking for, the performance we're looking for, getting the wide wheelbase in the front on a otherwise short wheelbase car from front to back, and then our guide perspective. Yeah, that's actually stretching the limits and just barely getting into that grub screw. Probably just barely seating the grub screw. In fact, I'm going to slide it off and just see how close it really is. Push that spacer back on. Just get a look and see just how much I think that grub screw is getting covered by the axle. Just how much the axle is getting covered by the grub screw. It's plenty. It's plenty there. So it could work for us. There's that ironically little thousandths of play we're looking for. So let's see. Let's see just what this looks like under here. I'll tell you what it looks like to me. It looks like Jackie is loving it. That is right at the exterior point. Now, that being said, as I just shoved Jackie's head back down, we can't turn the wheels, right? So if we can't turn the wheels, that's not going to help us. So we'll have to see whether or not there's a balance between doing that and getting the wheels to sit where we want to. So let's do that. Let's get our wheels set, and then we'll pick back up. So as it turns out, the test fit, it's too wide. But start small. Take away the 0.05, the 0.005 on the outside, since you have the wheel itself, which shouldn't allow and it doesn't, test fit it, it shouldn't allow the sideways spacer to go inside that from tolerances, because I almost pull it off of there. So start by removing just a 0.01 equivalent total by taking the 0.005 off of each side and see what happens. Now, I personally, from experience, don't think that's going to be enough, just removing the equivalent of 0.1, but we'll see. Now, it started to make a difference, but it's still hitting. It's still hitting, and that's okay. So, I mean, we also will need to reevaluate the idea that maybe we can put both thrusters for 0.005, but instead of a 0.4, instead of a what were these? Instead of a 0.04, the equivalent of 1 millimeter, let's go with a 0.5 millimeter. So let's find out if this will do the trick. All right, so here we are, taking out the equivalent of a 0.5 millimeter total. Let's see what we get now. Well, there you go. So now the question is, when you rock them up inside of there, they still spin freely. How about spin freely? So if I put my thumb here, simulating some action from this side of the car, or up inside of there, but you want to shake it from both sides because you want to simulate the idea that the tire could be rubbing in this direction now when you're doing that. So when you spin it, and then tilt it and see if it actually appears to be rubbing. Same thing in the other direction. Leave it flat and then spin it and see if it's rubbing. It might be. It might just barely need to come inside just a little bit. I personally am seeing that it's so close that I'm not 100% sure. And I'm sure Ernie's team had it, pretty decent, where maybe they didn't think any spacers needed to be used to make it, to make it to the point where you needed to do something. It's tight. It's not rubbing, and I'm going to look at it under the scope. I think we're going to try that. Now that I'm looking at it under the microscope, there's plenty of clearance. And there's nothing that happens underneath. There's nothing that happens underneath the wheel wells. Literally nothing that happens here at all. So, I think we're going to give that a shot. So now we've got that shot given, what we can also do is we can also look to see, are our tires still rolling with the relief of the block in place, right? So with the relief in line, yes, we're still rolling. And then what that usually means is we put the car on this side. And again, I got to overcome the guide because it's harder braid that's pushing. The relief, yes, on this side, we're rolling. And then on this side, it's a little bit stiffer braid, and the guide is so flush with the bottom of the car that, you got to push down. And usually if I've got it in the right spot, oftentimes the tires won't. They'll just barely touch and may not spin, but they are, because that guide is literally flush with the bottom of the chassis. So we're in great shape there. We're absolutely in great shape there. So we've got essentially our initial ride height set up. Well, that is just the beginning stages of this journey, and I really hope that you all continue to join me and watch the progress on how we got here. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and give me some feedback, give me some likes. It really helps out the channel. It helps out that algorithm and helps this little channel about these little cars grow. Thanks for watching.
If you don't subscribe to Hobbit Racing, I'll poke you with my staff. Pokey, pokey, pokey. She will poke you with her staff. Pokey!